Hello horror hounds. A week or so ago I checked out and reviewed a film called Paper House, directed by Bernard Rose, who also directed Candyman, and wondered in that video whether Bernard Rose had ever returned to horror after those two movies. Randy Mole got in touch in the comments section and said, dude, he's adapted Frankenstein. I do owe Randy a big thank you for pointing me in the direction of this movie, so cheers to you, buddy. The best way I can think to pay it forward is to let you guys know who don't know that Randy is the partner in crime of another YouTuber, Jambo Shango. They've got an excellent YouTube channel. I'll put a link in the description field below. If you like me at all, check them out and you'll love them. To bring you quickly up to speed with this version of Frankenstein, the first sentence from the back of the DVD cover. Frankenstein is set in present-day Los Angeles and told entirely from the perspective of the monster. The film is unforgiving, it's upsetting, it's brutal, it's harrowing. At times, this film seems more akin to The Passion of the Christ by Mel Gibson than it does your standard horror fare. But if we've learned anything from Paper House and from Candyman, it's that Bernard Rose is interested in taking the trappings of a genre, be it fantasy, horror, and using that to discuss the human condition. There's nothing here that'll be more iconic than the James Whale films from Universal, Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein, starring Boris Karloff. The Frankenstein adaptation that's probably still to this day closest to Mary Shelley's novel is Kenneth Branagh's 1994 film. But what we have here is an adaptation of Frankenstein that, despite the changing of setting, is one of the most faithful adaptations of the very heart of Mary Shelley's story that I've ever seen. What could have come off as gimmicky or just a sort of shortcut? You know, Mary Shelley's story is just as relevant now as it's always been, what with cloning and artificial intelligence. What could have come off as a gimmick really ultimately frees Bernard Rose from the time period and the setting of Shelley's story. He allows us to hope that perhaps this time the tragedy will unfold differently. Maybe the inherent sadness and injustice of a person seeking an identity and place in the world, as well as a connection with the creator that abandoned him, can be resolved far less fatalistically. Brief pastoral dream sequences are highly effective, used sparingly, and counterpoint the harsh, unforgiving world monster finds himself in following his birth and failed attempt to euthanize him. Practical special effects work for monster's deteriorating appearance, as well as the violence that's done to him and the violence he does to others, helps ground the loftier themes of Shelley's work and this adaptation in a bone-crunching reality that help make the bursts of violence affecting and shocking. I want to talk briefly about the cast that Rose has assembled, a small, tight-knit little group that works almost like a theatre group sometimes. Danny Huston as Frankenstein. Very little screen time. I fucking love Danny Huston. An almost minimalist performance from Danny Huston. Very little screen time, within which he manages to give a distilled performance that gives you a complete measure of the man and that character. His partner, Elizabeth Frankenstein, in this, a partner in life as well as work, also a scientist on the project to create new life, delivers a fascinating performance. I've seen some say that she's wooden, that she's the least effective of the cast, that she doesn't bring much compared to others. Completely and utterly disagree. If you watch her, her micro expressions convey the contradictory feelings, impulses and urges she's got as a person, as a carer, also as a scientist. She's giving you everything, more than any other actor in this film. You get absolutely everything from her, just not through dialogue cues, reactions, micro expressions, emotions that pass across her face. It's really one of the most nuanced and fascinating performances I've ever seen. Whereas Xavier Samuel as Monster stroke Adam is allowed to go broad. It's his film, it's his story. He's subtle, he's broad, he carries the film. And whilst you can be horrified at some of the things he does, whilst sometimes you can be frightened of him, the level of empathy you have for him and his tragic circumstances and his almost, not even almost, his existential pain, the existential pain that was always there in the original novel, is just wonderfully given to us. From Candyman, Bernard Rose brings back Tony Todd to play Eddie. In this, a blind homeless sort of blues guitar player who befriends Monster. Basically, Tony Todd's just as awesome as he always was, always will be. It's an amazing switcheroo to see a Frankenstein's creature who's smaller and slighter than the blind guy he befriends, because Tony Todd hulks over him like he hulks over most people. So here he is in a weird sort of other universe. Tony Todd would be a perfect Frankenstein's creature. He would bring the size and the physical threat and the gentle giant nature that we've seen in the 30s with Boris Karloff. But here he plays the creature's friend, and it's so great to have him on the screen. So yes, with characters and situations, there are nods to both the James Whale Frankenstein movies for Universal, Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein. Lines from Shelley's novel are used in voiceover for Monster or Adam to show the distinction between him, Adam the man with an inner life and a soul and emotions, as opposed to Adam the monster, born more from his outward appearance and the way people react to him and act around him and towards him. There's a line in the film where he says he wished that people would treat him like the person he is on the inside rather than the outward appearance. A lot of commentators and reviewers don't like the disparity between the verbal dexterity, the eloquence of his voiceover monologues and his remedial language and dialogue in the film, what he's able to express verbally. I don't see that dichotomy as a problem at all. It's the point. What people see and what he's able to express means they treat him as though he's mentally deficient, as though he's a monster, as though he's slow, has learning difficulties. But the person he is, not the shell, not the outward thing he shows to the world, the person he is, as with Shelley's creation, is a philosopher and a poet. There's shades in this of Danny Boyle's stage production of Frankenstein that I had the great luck to see at the National Theatre. The one that starred Johnny Lee Miller and Benedict Cumberbatch. How they played that was as the creature in the early stages post-birth, as an infant mind, learning and developing, and you get that in this film as well. You know, there are shades of David Cronenberg's The Fly in this, and there are Freudian colours throughout the subtext of the story as well, specifically Freud's Oedipal theory. Sadly, I think being independently distributed, coming out the year after I Frankenstein was roundly lampooned and lambasted, and in the same year as Victor Frankenstein with James McAvoy and Daniel Radcliffe came out, with the huge studio machinery of marketing behind that one, this movie's just going to get missed in a crowded pack. 3 Frankenstein movies at least in 2 years. There were probably more. Calling it Frankenstein, I think, didn't help the movie to stand out from the pack. Sadly, it looked like one of those straight to DVD trashy pieces of crap that you see lining the supermarket DVD shelves week in, week out, that are there one week and gone the next week. The truth is that if you're a fan of Mary Shelley's novel, if you're a fan of Boris Karloff's film, if you love the story of Frankenstein and you're after another intelligent, well-made, emotional adaptation of that story, this is the diamond in the rough for you. Now, I'm aware that there are alternate viewpoints out there, and considering that relatively recently one of you lovely commentators called me a pompous windbag sitting in his bedroom trying to sound like a genius. Dude, this isn't my bedroom. I thought, for balance, in this era of fake news, I'd give you a couple of other viewpoints culled from user reviews from the Internet Movie Database. This first one comes from Jacob John Taylor 1 that he kindly posted on the 18th of July 2016. He likes this movie, but as his review goes on, he seems to become a little bit more conflicted. He's titled his review, "This is film that with make your skin crawl and your blood run cooled." Jacob John Taylor says, "This is a very scary movie. 5.1 is underrating this movie. I give it 9 out of 10. This movie has a great storyline. It also has great acting. It also has great special effects. Frankenstein 1931 is better. Bride of Frankenstein is better. But still, this is a great movie. See it. See will scare you out of your mind. Son of Frankenstein is better. Frankenstein 1994 is better. Ghost of Frankenstein is also better. But this is a very scary movie. If it does not scare you, then no movie will scare you. This is an awesome movie. Cures of Frankenstein is also better. But still, this movie is a must-see. Lady Frankenstein is better. But still is a great horror film." And on the 6th of June 2016, Devish Pant simply called his review "Awfully Worst Movie." Frankenstein movie is same story movie using dead people to bring back to life. This story is used by almost many filmmakers. In almost every Frankenstein movie, there is something different method of giving life to dead. So, in this movie, there is different method they use latest technology to create body and giving them life, but in this actor who played monster role did not done good job to it. I don't know what they are trying to show us. Firstly, they are showing that he has 1-year-old mind, but 1-year-old baby didn't do those things what they shows. Then they showing that he is rapidly learning everything, but he is doing same thing as before. So, actor is looking totally confused in playing character between 1-year-old baby and monster, as in other Frankenstein movie they shows. That is why this movie somehow became very bad. It is very difficult to watch whole movie, so I fast forward this movie, completed before normal time. They also used famous actor. They are playing character of doctor, but what they can do to make this movie good, and they have very small role. Anyway, if you are thinking of watching this movie, please skip it and instead watch kids' cartoon movie. They are better than this movie. Devish, I don't agree with what you said, movie, but I will defend your right to say it, movie. Next, because I'm on a bit of a Frankenstein tip right now, we're going to be checking out a remake of Bride of Frankenstein.